going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, or you can just call me Juice, because that is my nickname. Today, we are discussing how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to fare during the 2020-21 NFL season. We'll go game by game, not necessarily game by game, but I'll go over their schedule, I'll look at their roster, and I'll kind of tell you how I feel about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season and how many games they are going to win. So last year, the Buccaneers went 7-9 as a football team last year. I gotta be honest with you guys, I got a chance to watch the entire Tampa Bay Buccaneers season last year, from this past year, because I did a Jameis Winston film analysis video. And in order for me to complete that video, I watched every single game that Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played last season. By the way, if you have not checked out that Jameis Winston film analysis video, be sure to check it out. I will put the link in the description for you guys watching on YouTube, okay? But either way, I got a chance to watch the entire Buccaneers season when breaking down Jameis Winston's film. And I gotta be honest with you, I think this team underachieved last year. I think that was a playoff caliber team based on the amount of talent that they had and the way things should have gone last season. This Buccaneers team, I'm not kidding you, they shot themselves in the foot so many times. It was so frustrating to watch, and I was very curious to see how many penalties the team actually had, because when I watched them on film, I was like, man, this team is, getting penalized so many times. They just lack attention to detail. And come to find out, they led the league last year in penalties. Okay, so I was right about that. And this team lost a lot of close games last season. The 49ers game, in week number 1, that was a double-digit loss. But if you actually watch that game, the Buccaneers handed the 49ers that game. Versus the New York Giants, they lose by 1 point at home. A game they had no business losing. Both Saints games lacked attention to detail, shot themselves in the foot. The Carolina Panthers game in week 6, it was an ugly performance. The Tennessee Titans, they lost by 4 points. They should have won that game. The Houston Texans at home, I think they had 4 or 5 turnovers in that game, and they lost by 3 points. They lost to the Atlanta Falcons in overtime in week 17. So look, this team lacked attention to detail, and the players need to be held accountable. The coaching staff needs to be held accountable for that. And most importantly, their quarterback from a year ago, Jameis Winston, needs to be held accountable for the lack of attention to detail. Listen, I understand that Jameis Winston put up a lot of great numbers last season, but I said in my film analysis video, I'm not surprised. There were a ton of open wide receivers. Jameis Winston's job was not that hard last year. And did the wide receivers always run the crispest routes for Jameis Winston? Not all the time. Were all of the interceptions that he threw on Jameis Winston? They weren't all on Jameis Winston. But either way you slice it, 30 interceptions is not going to win you football games, and we're not even going to count Jameis Winston's fumbles. They need to move on from Jameis Winston. He was just way too turnover prone. He made so many mistakes. He's not a very good thrower of the ball as far as, throwing the ball with touch. He's not the greatest processor at the line of scrimmage and post-snap. He's a terrible decision maker. He holds on to the football way too long. And the thing that people need to realize about the Buccaneers is that team last year did not need high-level production from the quarterback position when you actually look at the grand scheme of things. Jameis Winston gave the Buccaneers production last year. He threw for 5,000 yards. He had over 30 touchdown passes. But what was missing from the Buccaneers was efficiency and attention to detail. Now, you insert Tom Brady. Now, I don't think Tom Brady is anymore an elite quarterback right now. I think there are about 5 elite guys, Mahomes, Wilson, Rodgers, Watson, and Lamar Jackson, maybe Carson Wentz. But outside of those guys, that's the elite company. Tom Brady is no longer in that category, but I do believe Tom Brady is still a top 10 quarterback, and I do believe Tom Brady is going to be a huge upgrade over Jameis Winston this year. Tom Brady is accurate. He's a great decision maker. He consistently finds the open man within the structure of the play. He's excellent at the line of scrimmage. He's able to slide protections very well. He's a smart quarterback. You know, he is a quarterback that is known for his attention to detail. The Buccaneers have 41 turnovers last year, and Tom Brady has made a living off of being very detail-oriented as an NFL quarterback because he's not as talented as Aaron Rodgers. He's not as talented as Jameis Winston. He has to be detail-oriented because he's just not the most talented quarterback in the entire world. And his attention to detail has made him the greatest quarterback of all time. And Tom Brady is going to hold this Buccaneers team accountable. He's going to hold the coaching staff accountable for their lack of adjustments. He's going to make Mike Evans run sharper routes, when he's, trying to get open and things of that nature. Tom Brady is 42 years old. Has he lost some accuracy a little bit? Yes. Is his arm the strongest as it's been, from the past? Not necessarily. But Tom Brady is still a great quarterback. At 42, and by the way, he is 42 years old, so there is some potential that he could fall off a cliff this year, but I don't see it. Tom Brady last year had 4,000 yards. He had 24 touchdown passes, only 8 interceptions, and that was not with great skill position players at the wide receiver position. Julian Edelman was the best option for Tom Brady last year, and he dropped a lot of passes. Mohamed Sanu was not cutting it last year. Antonio Brown got cut from the team. N'Keal Harry disappointed as a rookie last year due to his injuries and lack of attention to detail. And what the Patriots actually did last year was they were still throwing the football down the field. Tom Brady can still push the football down the field. He has a strong enough arm to do so still. Now, I am a little bit concerned about how Tom Brady is going to be implemented with this team with a shortened training camp, but if anyone can make it work, it is Tom Brady. Now, as far as Bruce Arians goes, listen, Bruce Arians is going to run an offense that is suited to Tom Brady, and if he doesn't, he needs to be crucified because you don't bring Tom Brady into your team and you're going to run your offense. No, you run the offense that suits Tom Brady. And Bruce Arians last year was consistently not putting this team in position to succeed at the highest level. He consistently called vertical passing plays when he did not need to, and that caused the Buccaneers offense to fall behind because their offensive line last year could not hold up. Bruce Arians has to make the necessary adjustments, but if he does, I think this team can be a very good team. Bruce Arians is a pretty solid head coach. He just needs to be not as stubborn as he was last year. Now, a big question for the Buccaneers is their offensive line. Last year, they gave up 47 sacks, but I honestly think the Buccaneers' offensive line was not all that terrible last season. Jameis Winston held onto the football way too long last year. The thing about Tom Brady that's made him special is his quick release, his ability to get the ball to his playmakers very quickly. Tom Brady rarely gets hit because he gets the ball out of his hands so quickly. Not to mention, you add Tristan Wirfs in the 2020 NFL Draft, who's going to bolster up that offensive line. And according to Pro Football Focus, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line actually ranked 7th last year. According to Pro Football Focus, they're the 7th best offensive line. So while the Buccaneers offensive line, to me personally, is not elite, I do believe this offensive line is a competent group and above average in my opinion. Now, as far as Tom Brady's weapons, he's got no more excuses this year. He has no more excuses. Mike Evans is one of the 5 best wide receivers in all football. He's never not have had a 1,000-yard season. Ever since he's been in the league, even as a rookie, he's gotten 1,000 yards in a season. He's amazing. Chris Godwin burst onto the scene this past year, had a career high in catches, yards, touchdowns, and yards per catch. O.J. Howard, he has a chance to be a special tight end. He's got great speed. Cameron Brate, one of the more underrated tight ends in all football. Not to mention, you bring in Rob Gronkowski, a rejuvenated, healthy Rob Gronkowski, who to me is going to make an impact not only in the locker room, but as a blocker and as a receiving threat. So, I think the Buccaneers have one of the best cast of weapons as far as their wide receivers go in the entire NFL. And not to mention, they also drafted Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota. Do not sleep on Tyler Johnson having a big impact for the Buccaneers this season. We saw last year, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, rookie wide receivers, even Darius Slayton out in New York. We saw a ton of rookie wide receivers contribute at a high level from day one in the NFL. And this guy, Tyler Johnson, he played 43 career games in college. He's got a lot of experience. What does that mean? He's a pretty smart guy. He's played a lot of football. I believe he's going to get the speed with Tom Brady in this offense very quickly. And guess what? He can play in the slot. That's one thing Tom Brady has always had in his career. I do believe that Chris Godwin can play in the slot. I believe Tyler Johnson can play in the slot. This guy, Tyler Johnson, last year for Minnesota had 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. So keep your eye on Tyler Johnson this year. I think Tom Brady can make him an instant great player. Now, as far as the running backs go, you look at Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn. To me, pretty solid running back duo. Ronald Jones is an explosive running back with the ball in his hands, and Keyshawn Vaughn can do it all. He can catch passes out of the backfield, he can pass block, he can run between the tackles. He's just an overall good, solid football player. So that was a very good draft pick that the Buccaneers picked up. Now, I think the Buccaneers defense is arguably the most underrated unit in the entire NFL. No one is talking about this defense. Vita Vea in the middle of that defense at defensive tackle, he's a stud. He's a monster. Ndamukong Suh, he's a monster. JPP is a very good pass rusher, and Shaq Barrett at defensive end had over 19 sacks last season. So the Buccaneers front four is very formidable, I would say. Not to mention you have Devin White, who played very well as a rookie. To me, he was the second best overall player in that draft last year. You know, I had Quentin Williams and Devin White as the second best player. Obviously, Nick Bosa has kind of taken on probably the best, defensive player in that draft. But I was very high on Devin White, and he did not disappoint as a rookie. Not to mention Levante David is one of the most underrated, great players in the entire NFL. And the Buccaneers defense last year, it was 15th in total. They had the 15th best total defense, but they did have 47 sacks and the number one run defense. So there's something to hang your hat on. Now Todd Bowles is in his second year as the defensive coordinator, so they can take a huge leap this year. Now, the Buccaneers last year had the second worst passing defense. I do believe that will actually get better this year. They had a lot of young players that they were rotating in and out last year, and towards the second half of the season, those young players got better. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, who had 17 pass breakups last year, Antoine Winfield Jr., a guy they drafted this year who can come in and contribute a lot this year. I think the Buccaneers are a solid secondary. And when you have a great front seven, I think that's going to help this defense out a lot. Not to mention, if you come out early and score 30 points on the opposing team's head, your defense is going to play a lot better, okay? And not to mention, Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers offense put the defense in so many bad spots last season. So I think that this Buccaneers team is pretty darn good. I really do firmly believe so. I believe Tom Brady is going to have a great season. I think this defense is going to be a dominant unit. And guess what, people? I have the Buccaneers winning the NFC South with a 12-4 record. I think this team is going to come out early and get a bunch of leads on teams. And I think that Todd Bowles is going to get that pass rush to get after the quarterback, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to score 30 points on you, and then they're going to say, hey, Chris Jones, hey, Frank Clark, go get the quarterback. That is what the Buccaneers are going to do. They have some real players in that defense, and the offense is going to be great, and I think Tom Brady is motivated, after leaving Bill Belichick. He's going to be motivated to prove Bill Belichick wrong, and I think the Buccaneers are a 12-win team. They just have so many dynamic players, guys. And last year, that football team was a 10-win team if Jameis Winston cuts his turnovers in half, guys. Okay? So let's look at the schedule a little bit right here. I've already talked about how the Buccaneers are a better football team than everyone in the NFC South. I will preview the New Orleans Saints, in the next couple of days. I think the Saints are a little bit overrated as a team. But yeah, I have the Buccaneers winning this division. Now, week number 4. I'm sorry, not week number 4. Let's just look at the first 4 weeks. Week 1, 2, 3, 4. You got at Saints, Panthers at home, at Broncos, Chargers at home. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will start off probably somewhere around 3-1. They probably will lose to New Orleans in week number 1 at New Orleans. But keep in mind, guys, the last 2 seasons, the New Orleans Saints lost to the Buccaneers at home. Not this past year, but the year before that. And they should have lost to the Houston Texans last season at home. Do not be shocked if Tom Brady and the Buccaneers come into New Orleans in week 1 and upsets that team. I'm not going to bet on it. That's probably a loss. Now, week 2 versus the Panthers, that's an easy win. They're just not a great football team this year. I had them going 3-13 in my last preview video. Okay. At Denver, I think that has potential for a loss, but Denver is a young team. And I think that when it comes to young football teams that are very talented, some weeks they're going to look very good. But some weeks, they're also going to look like a roller coaster. And it's early in the season. I trust Tom Brady early in the season more so than Drew Lock. And I think the Buccaneers are going to get a win right there. And the Chargers, they're just a better team, and they get them at home, so I have that as a win. Now, the next couple weeks, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, Chicago at home, Green Bay at home, Vegas at home, and the New York Giants on the road. I honestly think the Buccaneers have a chance to win all 4 of those games. Now, the Green Bay game does worry me a little bit. I do think Green Bay's pass rush can get to Tom Brady. I do believe they have the secondary to match up with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I do think Aaron Rodgers will have a chance to expose the Buccaneers secondary. However, it is at home. It should be a fun game to watch. Rodgers versus Brady. That's always fun to see. Okay, so look, I think the Tampa Bay probably wins that game off the general principle that they are at home. But I would not be shocked if Green Bay wins that game. Vegas is a tricky game, however. After the Green Bay game, that could be a sleeper game. But outside of those 2 games, I mean Chicago and the Giants, I just think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a better football team than those teams right there. I think that week 5 it's at Chicago. I apologize, people. I did not in my head looking back at when I was surveying the schedule. I'm about 90% sure that the week 5 game is at Chicago, but I did not write down at Chicago on my sheet, so I apologize for that. But either way, whether it's at home or on a neutral field or on the road, I trust the Buccaneers over the Bears this year. I'm just not a buyer in the Bears this year as a great team. Now, week 9 through 12, you got the Saints, you got the Panthers in Carolina, you have the LA Rams at home, and you have the Chiefs at home. I think you're going to lose at least one of those games. It will probably be the Kansas City Chiefs game. Now, if you were to beat the Saints in week 1, I do believe the Saints are going to beat you in week 9. Okay, so I think you're probably going to split with the Saints this year. Could you sweep the Saints? Yes, that's a possibility, but I have too much respect for what New Orleans brings to the table as far as talent goes to the football field, so you're probably going to split with them. At Carolina's a win. The Rams is a win. But I'd probably say the Chiefs is a loss, okay? I really do firmly believe the Chiefs is going to be a loss. I just think that it's going to be hard for Tom Brady to keep up with a guy like Patrick Mahomes. I think the Kansas City Chiefs might be the best team in football, so that's a loss, even though it's at home, probably. Now, bye week in week 13, that's actually very key. I like the fact that the Buccaneers have a late bye week because they have an old, aging quarterback in Tom Brady, okay? So, you got week 14 versus Minnesota. You got week 15 at Atlanta, week 16 at Detroit, and week 17 Atlanta at home. I believe you're going to go at least 3-1 in those stretch of games right there. Minnesota is a good team, but not a great team. You're just better and more talented than them. You'll win that home game. Now, at Detroit and at Atlanta, okay, those are 2 tricky games at the end of the season. Now, the Detroit Lions might be out of contention by that time, and sometimes late in the season, Detroit can kind of be a roller coaster. Detroit's one of those teams that starts out very fast, but they kind of tend to die in the second half of the season. We see it from a Matthew Stafford-led team every single year, pretty much, okay? And the Atlanta Falcons, they might be playing their best football by that time, but they also could be out of contention. So, look, I think you at least split those road games. You'll probably lose at Atlanta and beat Detroit on the road, but I think you're going to win the Week 17 game at least versus Atlanta. And either way you slice it, I have the Buccaneers only losing about 4 games this year. This schedule is very favorable. There's not a stretch of games that the Buccaneers on this schedule are not going to be able to handle. They get a lot of key games at home versus very good teams. They have a very easy schedule early on, and they have a late bye week. That's very key when you have an old and aging quarterback like Tom Brady, who needs to be rejuvenated by the time the playoffs start. So, I think the Buccaneers might be the most talented team in the entire NFC. I think this team has a chance to be the 1 seed. I think this team has a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. I think Tom Brady is going to have a great season. I like the Buccaneers defense. I like what they did in the offseason. And I believe the Buccaneers are going to shock a lot of people and go 12-4 this upcoming season. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.